We talk a lot about leading ourselves well on this channel, but how do we practically do it? What does it look like? What steps can you start taking today? In this video, we will be exploring the first component of self-leadership and how you can start to change your life right now. I'll be honest, this skill that I learned, this was a game changer in my entire life. I wish I had known this at a younger age, so no matter what age you are, this is going to be so key for you thriving in your life, I promise. So the first component of self-leadership we're going to be exploring today is, drumroll please, emotional intelligence. I also like to call this learning not to indulge in my emotions. It has also been one of the biggest life lessons I've learned in my 20s and one of the most important skills that I'm currently honing in my 30s. Up to my mid-20s, I used to be really quite emotional and sensitive. I think you might have been shocked if you had met me back then. I really allowed my emotions to be affected by everything and anything going on. I wrongfully thought I had the right to feel and act on every single emotion. Because in my mind, why would I be feeling something that was unhealthy or wrong when it's my feeling? This honestly created an extremely chaotic thought life for me. And my emotions literally led me in everything that I did. They would literally be all over the place until I learned how to control how much I, Tori, indulged in them. Now, we all know what it means to indulge, right? Especially if you've ever been on a diet and you have a cheat day. It's almost like you want to cram as much bad food in your mouth as you can before the next day because you know that the diet starts again. We oftentimes do the same things with our emotions, but we do it all the time. A helpful, practical way that has really helped me understand emotional intelligence is knowing, first of all, that I can acknowledge my thoughts and my feelings, both good and bad. But, and here's the real key, that I control what I allow to land in my mind. Okay, so think of a plane that has to circle around an airport, waiting to get the all clear from air traffic control to land. You are your own air traffic control. I bet you never thought anyone was ever going to tell you that in a YouTube video, but I just did. You are your own air traffic control. You have control over what thoughts and emotions you allow to land in your minds, what emotions you allow to take hold, what thoughts you spend your time focusing on. So let me give you a personal and pretty vulnerable example. This may be especially relatable if you've gone through grief or have lost a loved one. So I have this huge fear that because my dad died of cancer, it means that I'm going to lose my mom in the same way. Is this a normal fear to have? Absolutely. And if you're feeling this way, it's absolutely normal. However, I used to let this thought, this emotion land in the airport of my mind all the time, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I focused on it so much and let it take such a hold in me that it crippled me for a while. It grew and it grew in my mind until I got into such a state that I was losing a lot of sleep. I was having constant panic attacks, and I was just in general freaking out. It robbed me of enjoying good memories with my family, being present and active in like family days, because I had this very, very, very real tangible fear that that day would be the last good memory we would be having until my world completely blew up again. I indulged and fed into this emotion. Like, you know that kid in Matilda who was forced to eat that giant cake that was like the size of a moon? He had to eat it in front of the whole school. That was me with this emotion and this fear and this thoughts. I was constantly indulging in it. It wasn't until I was having weekly counseling that I realized how much control I'd actually let that emotion, that thought have in my life. And it was even spilling into other things. Like, a lot of you know that I used to have an amazing cat called Rose, and she was the last thing that my dad gave me before he died. And I actually lost her last year. I think I went through a whole new stage of grief that was also connected to my dad. I then had the blessing of having Heart, who a lot of you know. I love her so much. She has been such a companion for me in such a tough time. And my fear and my thoughts of losing my mom then spilled over to what happens when I lose Heart. And I had literally just had her for like a month, and I was freaking out so much about losing her. I was indulging in this thought of loss and trying to run away from loss because of what had happened over the last few years. And it really caused me to not be present in my life with my loved ones and my friends. This is where counseling has been almost a lifesaver for me, because my therapist showed me I do in fact have control on what thoughts I allow to land in my mind. If you're enjoying this video so far and you feel like someone you know would find this subject useful or helpful, then make sure you like and you share the link with them. And also, if you want to be a part of our ever-growing family here, then make sure you hit the subscribe. It's really easy when you're indulging in your emotions to start creating scenarios in your head that are either never going to happen or maybe are going to be a long way off. I really wish I learned this in my early 20s. It would have saved me a lot of heartache and headaches. But like I said before, no matter what age you are, this is something you can learn right now and put into practice right now. And I promise you, if you do it and you commit to it, it's going to change your life right now. I'm doing this today. I feel like I'm chopping a lot today. I'm sorry. My dad always used to tell me that I have a choice whether I react or I respond to something. A reaction would almost be a thoughtless knee-jerk reaction, maybe a trigger, and from there I would let my emotions and my thoughts run riot in my head. Responding, on the other hand, is more like taking a calm approach and looking at the situation, whatever's going on, with self-awareness in mind. Self-awareness, which we talked about before, is so crucial in emotional intelligence, because in order to be emotionally smart, you have to first be honest with yourself about how you react. And that's not always an easy pill to swallow. You have to know how you work inside. Do you get emotional? Do you full on embrace everything that you're feeling? Are you easily triggered? Do your emotions run hot and cold? If you can't answer these questions for yourself, then I would suggest that you need to get to know yourself a little bit more, because knowing the answers to these questions are really going to help you in learning how not to indulge in your emotions. A lot of people subscribe to the idea that
they can't control their emotions
and they have a right to act and feel however they want.
And this is not an accurate way to think, actually. This is usually commonly used as a cop-out or maybe an excuse for people to act on how they feel because that's what they want to do, and perhaps not act on what they should do. You may not be able to control every thought you have. That's normal. No one's ever going to be able to control every thought that comes into their head. But you 100% can control if you react to it or if you respond to it. No one wants to be around people who are emotionally all over the place. I, for one, am someone that very much avoids people like that. And if I find out you're someone that's like that, then you'll probably see that I'm not really around you much. It is exhausting for people to be around someone who's always emotionally triggered by everything. It's just tiring. On the opposite extreme of being emotionally smart is perhaps someone who locks away their emotions and kind of puts up a huge wall and refuses to feel anything. They usually wrongly assume that you don't need to manage your emotions if there are no emotions or feelings to manage. And this I can tell you from experience, because I've also tried it this way, that way of living brings so much damage and other issues into your life. You have no idea. The goal is to find a healthy balance, and that can only come from practicing emotional intelligence. So how can you start today? Maybe you focus on practicing the air traffic control scenario in your mind for every triggering emotion or thought that comes into your head. You have to build up a habit, and habits take time. I know it's annoying. Everyone wants to have a habit in one day, but habits take time. It's not going to happen overnight, and you shouldn't beat yourself up when maybe you do start to indulge in your emotions a little bit too much. Sometimes you're going to have to let those planes crash, and the airport might catch on fire, but that's okay. We rebuild and we start again tomorrow. Keep trying until it becomes second nature to question yourself when you're feeling like you're getting emotionally triggered. Acknowledge the thoughts and emotions. I'm not saying don't acknowledge that you're having them. That would be very unhealthy, because some are there to protect you, but you don't need to let any emotions or thoughts or feelings consume you. Remember what we talked about in the last video? It's a choice. There's that word again, choice. You're going to hear it probably so much more, but it is a choice. And I promise you, your life is going to go a lot smoother, especially mentally, if you learn to not indulge in your emotions. This is the ultimate key to learning how to lead yourself well into a thriving life, which is what we all want here. Join me in the next video where we will be discussing the next component of self-leadership, which is self-management and self-motivation. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for choosing to hang out with me today, and I will see you in the next one.
We can sleep under the stars or hang out in hotel bars, driving somewhere in your car. We can sleep under the stars, we can sleep under the stars.